Hey guys, it's Rachel back for video 2 of the day. I was tagged about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago by Noah Tempestarii for the 16 Witchy Questions challenge video. Unfortunately, my attempts at getting my friends involved in this have been not successful by any stretch of the imagination. I did a video a few different times with Shelby, and the audio was absolutely horrible, and you can't understand half of what's being said in it. So as soon as I can get them back on my channel again and that sort of a deal, I promise you will hear from them soon. But I wanted to really, do this video and be involved in that whole Be the Witchy Change thing that's been going around before it's too late. So, without further ado, my answers to the 16 witchy questions. Question 1 is, do you have a witchy name, and how did you come by it? So, in the beginning of my practice, I was really set on having a pagan, a witchy name. I went through that whole phase of having the really kind of new agey, I'm going to name I think it was Sea Storm or something. I was 13. Sea Storm was my very first craft name, and I was really interested in water magic and in my moody goth phase, so that was how that came to happen. And I went through several different names as, I grew up and my interests changed and that sort of a thing. My most recent craft name was Brenna Adara, and I ran a YouTube channel and a blog under that name. I, did a lot of stuff in the community under that name. But recently, within the last year or so, it's kind of gotten to feel worn out, and I'm really trying to integrate my personal craft and my witchcraft and my paganism, my spirituality into every aspect of my life. And so I felt that I don't need to separate the two with having a different name that I go by in each. I'm not hiding anything. Both of those aspects of my path of my life are, very much interconnected. So to have separate names for, mundane versus religious life just seemed like a silly thing to me. So I've since dropped using religious names altogether and just go by my personal name. So, I'm over here going, hey guys, it's Rachel, and that's just how it's been. And it's kind of freeing, actually, and I've really just enjoyed not having to worry about, juggling. So I'd refer to myself as, my real name and my craft name, and it just got to be complicated, and not having one has tenfold simplified my life. So, question 2, where are you located and what brought you to that area? So, right now, I'm living in West Michigan. I'm here because I'm going to school, studying history, all that good stuff. Only 6 more weeks left. Hey. I'm originally from the east side of the state, so it's about a 2.5, 3-hour drive away from where I grew up. I've been a Michigander all my life. I do the goofy hand thing, I live here, that sort of deal. It's an interesting place to practice paganism. A lot of the weather changes that are associated traditionally with the wheel of the year don't quite line up here. So it's almost the spring equinox, and we have a blizzard right now. You can see the blinding white of my window. Yes, we are experiencing a bit of a snowstorm today because Michigan. It might be snowy in April. I don't know. So it's definitely interesting living here in the Midwest. Question 3 is, do you wear a special amulet or jewelry for spell work? I have lots of jewelry, and I consider most of those pieces to be kind of, sacred in some way. They're not necessarily needed for my spell work. They're just kind of things that I, have associated with my craft and wear as an expression of that. So my pentacle here is the most recent one I bought. It's got the moon and the star there. And I have this other necklace, and it's a crystal cage with aqua aura and smoky quartz on it. I have this ring here, and I've kind of, tied that with some of my like Celtic path kind of stuff. I have this other ring that I just got. It's got a citrine crystal in it, and I picked it up over break because I wanted to empower it with some like energy and positivity and like motivation, like good vibes to power me through the last 6 weeks of school here. I have this ring that they were selling at my local, witchy shop, and they were supposed to be worn on the left thumb, and they'll increase your, intuitive ability. And my mom and her friends and a bunch of other of the, tarot readers at that store have them. And so it kind of was one of those, look, now I'm part of the club. And I just like silver rings. I'm kind of, ooh, shiny. So I have lots and lots and lots of jewelry. None of them are specific to, magical workings or spell work. They're just kind of, significant pieces of jewelry that I've attached memories to. Next question. What is your favorite space or place? Anywhere in the woods is basically sacred space to me. I have a few different groves here on campus and back at home where I go and hang out, meditate, drum a little bit with my drum, those sort of things. Beyond that, my room usually is kind of my sacred space, my sanctuary. Like, this is my zone. I do a lot of ritual, both in my room and outdoors in those grove areas. Beyond that, other places that are kind of like really special to me in a witchy sense are my aunt's garden, where we do, tarot readings on the patio with the twinkly lights and all that kind of a thing in the summertime. Like, that's a really special place to me. And my local witchy shop where we, used to hang out and just drink coffee and look at different crystals and things. And it's, one of those places where you have significant memories about like how you came to different places in your craft that are really, special to me. I have an entire video on sacred places and a blog post. I will post those so that way you can get more information about that, see some pictures, all of those good things, because they're cool. Question 5 is, what is your favorite stone or crystal for magical workings? So, I am a bit of a crystal hoarder. So I've got this whole little bowl here full of crystals, and I have a bunch more on my altar. And then again, I showed you a little smoky and aqua aura quartz there. I don't have a favorite. Moss agate has a soft spot in my heart for me. I just like how it looks. It's like moss and glass. It looks really pretty. Like, here's one. And the lighting is horrible, so you can't see it that well, naturally. And again, the smoky quartz and the aqua aura quartz pendant have been kind of my like go-to, pendant to wear around a lot lately, just because it's, those energies of like heightened intuition and creative energy and that sort of a deal, but also like that grounding, protective, banishing negativity side of the smoky quartz. So that's been my like, combo to wear lately. For magical workings, clear quartz is usually a pretty sturdy all-purpose stone that I use often. I don't use crystals for like spell work exactly. I tend to empower them for specific purposes and then just wear them, like, the really simple side of that. But again, no real favorites. I just collect them. It's a problem, guys. 6 is, how long have you been practicing and how did you come to this path? So I've talked about this a little bit before in past videos, but I'll go through it again. Obviously, I came to this path like 12 or 13 years ago, give or take, and I came to it first through an interest in tarot reading and divination, and I had like the Dragon Tarot was my first deck, and it's very pretty, but it is not the most easy to read deck. The Minor Arcana has a lot that is lacking in, being able to be read. It's, a dragon twisting around this background with, X number of swords or X number of cups on it. And while it's very, again, pretty to look at, it's not as easy for me, who needs like lots of pictures and symbols to like draw from when I'm reading, to work with. So I started with tarot, and being obscenely mature and observant for a 10 or 11-year-old, I went, hey, let's research some of the symbolism here, and stumbled into astrology and then into Wicca and witchcraft, and then into druidry. So those are kind of, my beginnings, really. I told my mom that I wanted to practice witchcraft. She had been practicing when I was a kid, kind of a thing, and basically was handed, like a pentacle necklace and a silver raven wolf book and some candles and like, have fun. And kind of taught myself a lot of the actual like religious side of things. I've had a lot of, mentorship from my mom's friends in things like tarot and spell work and meditations and those sort of topics within witchcraft. So it's been a very, interesting and exciting path to be on. Question 7 is, do you have a specific deity, patron god or goddess, and how did you connect with them? So as I've said before in past videos, I work primarily with Herne the Hunter and the Wild Hunt. I think that my relationship with Herne the Hunter really stemmed from this, interest in the green man early on in my path. Like, I can't pinpoint the exact, turning point of that relationship, but there was a point back in, the summer of, 2011 or so, where it went from green man, that energy, to Herne the Hunter, and then later the Wild Hunt. And how I connected with the Wild Hunt, and really that sort of horned god archetype, was, again, fall of 2011, I think. I was, in my senior year of high school, doing some homework, hanging out at home, and I got this urge of just, go outside. And I'm like, I'm doing homework. We're going to do homework. But it was go outside. I'm like, okay, fine. We're going to go outside. We're going to take a break. We're going to go outside. And so I, gathered up, my pendulum and a tarot deck and some incense, those sorts of things, in, my little green man pouch. And I went outside, and there's this deer standing there, at, the fire pit where we used to do a bunch of our rituals. And I'm like, whoa, well, that's obviously a sign of something. And it scurried off to this hill back further in the yard. And I'm like, okay. So I walk a bit closer, carefully, quietly, and it's still staring me down. And we're having this, stare off. And I get relatively close to it, and it bounds off again into the woods. And I ended up researching, some of the symbolism of, the deer as, a sign kind of a thing. And had this, inkling to just ask about, Fae and the Wild Hunt. It was one of those things that just kind of came to me as I was sitting on that hill, wondering what it was this sign was supposed to be. And so I ended up contacting that, those spirits, that archetype, relatively early on in my study of Celtic stuff, and came to this thing where I was like, okay, well, I think this might be the Wild Hunt, and I think that this is something that I have a calling for. So I went back out to that hill where I had that experience, and I said, hey, if I'm meant to work with you, if this is a partnership that we're going to be having, I want you to send me crows or ravens within a week. And crows and ravens are, my typical, sign of oh, something is going to happen in your life. There's a big change coming. Some spiritual shenanigans are afoot. And for most of that week, none. And I mean, it's like October, November in Michigan, and there's tons of crows, usually, like tons of them. I didn't see a goddamn single one, not hear them, nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, now that's a little bit spooky. What did I just, like, poke at? And then, now I'm not hearing anything. And the 7th day, I'm waiting for my mom to pick me up from retaking the ACT because she was adamant that I do so. And all of a sudden, an entire murder of them starts calling up a storm and comes up from behind the community college where I had retaken this test. And I'm like, okay, so that happened. And then I look back out over the parking lot because I'm waiting for my mom to come get me, and there's this, bird of prey, and it comes up from the woods off in the distance, and it does a few circles, like kind of like falconry almost, and then it like ducks back down into the trees. And so that's how I first connected with him. And I still find that connection whenever I'm walking in the woods, whenever I'm doing things like archery, whenever I'm, feeling really inspired by that like forest archetype. So that's kind of my main, patron deity of sorts, though I do work with other gods and goddesses from time to time as they come and go in my life. They're not usually as like permanent figure in my practice, but that's, the major connection that I have in that sense. Question 8. What is your favorite incense or smudge? So my favorite incense is dragon's blood. It reminds me of my aunt's house, the one who taught me how to read tarot and all that kind of thing. It's very just evocative of like those sort of childhood, memories and remembering tarot lessons with her and that kind of cool witchy aunt vibe that I just got from her house when I was growing up. That is what dragon's blood reminds me of. And so it's still one of my, witchy go-to get in the zone incenses. My favorite smudge would have to be sage, white sage. It just kind of powerhouse like cleanses everything. Like I just really like the feeling that it leaves once you've smudged a room with it. And so it's been one of my, go-tos in that sense. Question 9, speaking of cleansing spaces. Have you ever had to clear a space of a negative entity? So, I've only had to do that once. Basically, picture, if you will, a half dozen or so kids, all interested, like newly interested in witchcraft, and also really into their angsty goth phase. So, like, wouldn't it be rad if this space was haunted? And you see the problem there. And we created what I'm assuming. This is my, hypothesis, is it's kind of like a poltergeist of sorts. It's created on like teen, angsty, angry, weird energy, and then like that desire that we had for like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if this place was haunted? So I had this sort of like negative thing that was hanging around my house for a solid year or so, and it took a lot of smudging and just like, get out, I'm not giving you more power, leave, kind of energy to finally get rid of it. And that's the only time I've had to deal with that. I don't want to ever again. It's not fun. So that's that story. Question 10. What is your favorite witchy show or movie? I don't think I can pick one, to be honest. I like all of those sort of, like witchy shows and whatnot. I haven't actually watched Charmed, so I will confess to that. But, Practical Magic reminds me again of my mom and my aunt. Them being kind of like, the fun witchy aunts kind of figures in my own life. And then, Charmed, The Craft. I had, this whole thing this past couple of summers with, Mark and Shelby, and we had watched The Craft together and had a good few laughs about it. So all of those sort of things. Hocus Pocus is like one of my favorite Halloween movies. So like I don't get too bent out of shape as far as like Hollywood portrayals of witchcraft. Just because it's Hollywood, and I understand that there's always going to be misconceptions about things, especially when you're doing it for the entertainment industry. So I love all of them, but definitely Practical Magic, The Craft, and what did I just say? Hocus Pocus are three of my favorites in regards to witchy movies. Question 11 is, what do you do to help raise energy before spell work? So, I have it right here. So I'll show you guys. I have this drum, and I like often to kind of raise energy for spell work. I like sitting and while I'm doing some drumming with that. Sound, music, that kind of thing really puts me into that zone. I'm very much interested in that in my own spell work, and looking to develop that more as I continue working on my path. So that's my go-to, energy raising for spell work. Question 12 is, do you see yourself helping others magically? So in the sense of doing spellcraft for other people, I don't typically do spells for other people unless they ask me, or it's something really serious that I've noticed. And again, usually I ask them before I cast a spell for them. Consent is always a good thing to have when casting spells for other people. So I don't do that too often. Most of my spells are focused on self-improvement and self-love, these kinds of things, or connecting with my deities and guides. So in that sense, I don't usually do magic for other people. I'm not helping in that sense. But as a teacher, as a priestess, something that I want to go into definitely is being kind of like pagan clergy, and being that sort of mentor and helping people through different transitions in life and those sorts of things is something that I'm really interested in. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And I have had the privilege of mentoring a couple of people here and there throughout my craft already. So again, that's something that I really connect with. So helping people magically in that sense, I definitely see that as continuing to be part of my spiritual life. I think that I really want to help wherever I can, as far as mentoring, advice, those sorts of things go. And so that's something that I plan to continue working on. Question 13. What is your preferred form of divination? I've said this before also in a YouTube Pagan Challenge video. My preferred form of divination is definitely the tarot. It's what I'm most proficient at. I have probably more tarot decks than I need. That's okay. But I've tried runes, pendulums, scrying, a few other things. Most of them are kind of, touch and go. I can get them to work sometimes, but not often. Tarot is a more constant thing. It's very visual. It's very, grounded in storytelling as you're pulling cards and as you're piecing together the different parts of the spread and that sort of deal. So it's what I have the most practice in, and what I've kind of developed the most and been the most, effective at doing. Question 14. What element do you work with the most? So I would have to say that I do a lot with earth. I'm very, forest, earth centered in my path. But again, I started out with an interest in water witchcraft. And so the sea, I do a lot with that. I do a lot in spell work, I guess, with fire, candle magic, and making sachets and burning them in the fire, that sort of a thing. Those are kind of the three that I would guess I work with the most, but I definitely connect the most with the earth. I love crystals and jiving with trees and, that sort of thing. Those are that's where I feel the most attune is definitely when I'm working with the element of earth. Next, if you threw a party, which of the YouTube witches would you invite? I don't think I could pick a list of if I follow you, if I'm subscribed to you, if I've chatted with you on YouTube, like almost everyone in this community is fabulous. All of you guys, I want to party with, like, we need a YouTube witchy party. It'll be great. I don't think I could pick favorites out of the lot of you. I think you are all wonderful, wonderful people. And then finally, 16, what are your witchy goals for the new year? The new year is quite a bit underway already, and I think I've touched on this in like my last update video, but my witchy goals for this year are really to make a concrete, everyday practice that I'm working on and really focus it back in on the wild hunt and on my goals for, being a pagan priestess, whatever you want to call it, and helping other people in that sort of, dealing with transitions and that sort of a thing kind of a way. I'm planning on working on writing a book about my whole wild hunt path sort of a deal. So hopefully I can get that at least, underway, if not done by the end of the summer, fall, that kind of a thing. That's a pet project that I'm planning on picking up as soon as I've graduated. So that's in the works. And then beyond that, just keeping up with YouTube and with my blog and all of those sorts of things. I want to be more involved in the community. I want to be, engaging in more of these conversations with other people and that sort of a thing. So that concludes the 16 witchy questions. Thank you again, Noah Tempestarii, for tagging me. I can't think of anyone that I can tag who hasn't already done this challenge from what I've seen. So if you're following me, if you're watching this, if you are, thinking about starting your witchy YouTube channel or whatever, and you haven't done this or been tagged in this, whatever, feel free to do so. I will post a copy of those questions in the down bar down there, and hope to hear from more of you. So blessed be, guys.